Good evening, this is Laws 11057. It's week number 12. This is term 2, 2015. It's review week. There's no set material. Tonight we'll talk briefly about the examination. We'll talk about the third assessment piece, and we'll also talk about any issues that you wish to raise as a result of doing this course. If you have any comments to make, please feel free to make those comments. If you wish to raise any issues, please let me know. As always, you can use the chat facility or you can use your camera. I'll just go to speaker screen at the moment. All right, so firstly, the examination. The exam is open book. You need to answer 6 of 7 questions. They're of equal value. Each is 10 marks. If you answer more than 6, I'll mark the first 6 that I see. Now, it's open book. That means you can bring in anything. If you think that you have your answer to the question already prepared, you can bring in the answer. You can bring in any text material. You can bring in whatever you like, except something that will allow you to access the internet. I wouldn't bring your phone to the examination room. I'd leave that in the car. A standard dictionary, you can't bring that, and you can't bring a calculator. I really don't know what advantage the dictionary and calculator would give you in this particular exam. Access to the internet might be a different thing. And you've seen on the front page of Moodle what may well be part of the examination. You know it will include something about separation of powers, and you know it will include a redrafting exercise, which is the redrafting of legal gobbledygook. That's what I meant to say. I actually put drafting of gobbledygook. It's the redrafting of it that I'm interested in. And the rest of it should be pretty straightforward. If you look at past exams, you'll have a good idea. And for the last couple of years, I've taken terms 2 and 3. So they're exams that I've written. Term 1 has been taken by Wayne Jones. So that's a similar exam, but a slightly different emphasis. So no surprise that the exam will be more likely in line with the ones that I've written in the past. Now, are there any questions about the exam? Anything that is not totally clear? I take it you've all worked out where you need to go to do the exam. I forget the day. Is anyone able to remind me the day and the time? From memory, it was 9 o'clock in the morning. I thought on a Wednesday or something, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. What was that, sorry?
Wednesday the 21st.
Oh, great. Thanks. That was Letitia. Thank you. 21st, and is it 8 o'clock in the morning? So that's a nice early one. 3 hours, which is pretty cruel, I'm sorry. Particularly for those of you that aren't skilled in writing. I mean, back in the 70s, we would write everything. So through the whole term, we're getting lots of practice. And here, suddenly, after typing all your lives, in many cases, you're asked to write an exam by hand for 3 hours. I apologise, that's pretty cruel. But that's the way it is. So do some practice of handwriting. Try and work out your time management. You don't have to answer these in order. If you want to, so you have to be there at 8, but it doesn't start until 8:30. Thanks, Kathleen. If you decide that you want to answer question number 7 first, do that. If you want to answer the redrafting exercise, which will be question number 2, if you want to do that first, that's fine. So in the booklet, don't feel that you must put it in order. When you've completed the question on the booklet, put the questions that you have actually answered on the front cover. If you don't do that, I'll do that. All of the questions are physically sent to me here in Harvey Bay, so they go into Rockhampton, they come to Harvey Bay, and hopefully I'll get them in good time. A few occasions I've had to turn them around in a day or two, but now, Brisbane is 9 o'clock, says Letitia. Wow, that's interesting that they're at different times. That's bizarre. But anyway, that's what it is. So thank you, Letitia. Okay, so Melbourne, 9 o'clock as well. So if you have any preference for doing the exam question, just do them in the order that you like. You don't have to do them in the order that's stated. Try and organise your time. Now, I will give you a little tip. I probably shouldn't tell you this. But if you get a question and you really just have very little idea of it, you can just make sure you get down the main points. Get down a few dot points even if, it gives the appearance that, look, sorry, ran out of time, you may have written that, with half an hour to spare. I don't know. I shouldn't tell you to do that. But if you get down the main points, the first 5 marks are much easier to get than the second 5. The last mark is the hardest mark to get. So the first mark is the easiest. You write down something very basic on topic. Every year it happens, somebody will put in less than the correct number of answers. So there's 6 answers that you need to provide. Don't put in 4 or 5. For the 5th or 6th, even if you know very little at all, put something down, because you may need that mark or 2 that I'll award you as pretty easily. Okay, now there's a few things coming through on the chat facility, probably just telling us the times. So Cairns 9, Townsville 9, Toowoomba, Melbourne's 9. So all over the shop with the times. But so we've got a mixture of times between 8 and 9. I have question about referencing it's an open book exam. You don't need to reference in the way we do for the Australian Guide to Legal Citations. You can if you want, but you don't have to. But you are required to acknowledge the authorship of material that you've drawn from an external source. So if you've drawn the material from an external source, then it is a requirement that you reference it in some way or another. You can use Harvard referencing if you like, or you can just do something else. A direct quote is fine. You can put in a direct quote. If it's from a case or from legislation, then what you should do, of course, is reference the primary source rather than the secondary source, if that makes sense. So if you've read about a case in your textbook, then reference the case, not the textbook, if that makes sense. All right. Well, given that there are no questions, I think everybody's on top of this. Is that a fair comment? You can just give a shake of the head if you like. We're good? All right. If there's no other questions about the exam at this stage, I'll move on to the third assessment piece, but feel free to ask any questions about the exam if you wish. The third assessment piece relates to your blog and your reflections. I have graded all of the papers that have been submitted already. What I'm doing is it's slightly different. I've created a general YouTube clip. I suppose you can go looking for it if you're really keen, but I've created that already. I'll provide you with a link to that in my assessment, and I've also created an audio reflection and a part of an assessment personalised for you, and that should be accessible through Moodle. So hopefully you'll be able to access that, but I've done that for each student. So you've got the general response, which will be a YouTube clip, and then you've got the personalised feedback, which is audio for about 3 minutes. But otherwise, for the most part, everyone did quite well. Next year, it probably will be, or next term, it'll probably be different. So you may well be the last of the group doing this type of assessment. If you really thought it was terrific assessment, and you'd hate to think that other students in the future miss out on the opportunity, please let me know. On the other hand, if you thought it was a pretty ordinary assessment, let me know. Indeed, for any of the assessment, please provide some direct feedback. You can send me an email, you can send me a message, you can provide it in the Have Your Say commentary, whatever you prefer, but your feedback is really valuable. I take it that most people have already pushed the big red button and had their say. If you haven't, please do so. It's important for me, it's important for the university, and we really appreciate some candid feedback in that regard. All right, so are there any questions about the assessment regime generally, the third assessment? I should say that I'll release the third assessment after the due date, and at this stage the due date is Saturday. So my standard practice is always the assignment is due, or the assessment's due, on a Thursday. The final cut-off is the Saturday of the following week, and then typically I'll release the results and the feedback on the Sunday after that. So about 10 days after the cut-off is when you'll get the assessment and the results. So even though I've marked them all, I won't release them yet because there are still a few outstanding papers. So any questions about any of that? Okay. All right. Are there any questions now about the course generally or any particular topics? Are there things that you're finding difficult to grasp? Are there any issues that I need to consider now? And as we speak, I'm looking at UCrew to see if there's anything that's been raised there. Has everyone determined what they're taking into the exam, for example? You've got your trolley ready? I think it's going to be a short night tonight. We've answered everything. Everything's been sorted. There's been a lot of discussions about what people are going to study next term. At the moment, I'm busily preparing 2 subjects. One is Introduction to Law for Term 3, and the other is Environmental Law, which will be a first-time offering. I think it's for third-year students, but it might be second-year students, so keep an eye out for that one. The other one that I have taken a few times is ADR, so keep an eye out for that one as well. But if you've got any thoughts about the subjects you're taking in Term 3, please add to the commentary, which is already good in UCrew. There's been some very good comments there, and some good comments about Anthony Marinek's course, and Anthony's doing very well in his contracts course. Okay, so are there any questions, any comments? Because if there's not, it'll be an early night, and there's probably only the typing challenge to go. Who was my challenger? I forgot. Someone was going to challenge. No? I'll be undefeated because nobody's challenged. I've never actually beaten anyone, but I think a few of you were bluffed at the start because I appeared to be confident and you thought, oh, he must be good. And then someone wrote and said, lawyer's bluff. I remember seeing that chat facility. So part of the exercise, of course, is you've got to give the appearance that you're on top of it without being arrogant and having some substance behind it. It can't be a complete bluff. And you, of course, you've got to be careful about bluffing when it comes to giving advice. So I should be careful about my comments in that regard. Okay. All right. Well, we might be calling it a night soon then. If there's no questions, no comments, no typing challenge for Term 2, 2015. Last offer? No? All right. Well, I'll stop the recording now, and all the best for the examination. Thanks very much for joining me this term. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have, and all the best for your future studies.